Okay, so Chodesh Tov, everybody. So tonight we have another edition of the Heroes of Israel, and we're talking about. It's very interesting that these two yartzeits fall out close together. The last Sunday was the yartzeit of Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, Zechron Livracha, the Satmar, and next Sunday is the yartzeit of Avram Yitzchak HaKohen Kook, who's the first chief rabbi of Israel, and they were very diametrically opposed in the way they looked at the state of Israel. Even though it's important to note that the concept of Zionism that exists during Rav Kook's life was not really exactly the same thing as it is now, simply because he passed away in 1935. It was way before there was a state of Israel. So the concept of Zionism was a little bit different then. And whereas opposed to the Satmar, that he passed away in 1979, so he was mamish during the time of he lived to the very nice age of 92, so he's it's from a mamish different generation, and we'll start with the Satmar, and just as there's so much to learn from him, so much to take from him that. I forgot to bring pictures of it, whatever. But the Satmar, you should really look at. You should see his pictures because he's just such a holy man that you can tell in the picture. You can tell how holy he is. People that I know. One of my wife's uncles told me that he was his face would glow, that you would just see him that, and not only that, but in some pictures, you can even tell that there's something weird with his face. You can even tell from the pictures that his face is glowing. It's really, really cool, and that's really because he was so holy. And here, let's get you some images. Okay, this is one of the most famous pictures of him. This is what we're talking about. Okay, this is what? Nice. Okay, maybe we can share on the group. Mm-hmm. And so he was a very, 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 very holy man. I've never experienced this. I've never encountered this since we started this series on Jewish heroes. I've never encountered in my research for a certain gadol, I've never encountered complete articles against somebody. The Satmar is the only one that I've encountered so far, that you're trying to research stories about a gadol, and you find complete articles that are trying to scorn him. Incredible, no? It's unreal that people they try to belittle his different they try to make it he wasn't really a Holocaust survivor, and he was a hypocrite, and it was horrible things. It's amazing. It certainly says something about what a meaningful historical figure he was. If on the one hand that he was such a holy man, that they had people that they publicized things on the internet to say how he was a bad and hypocritical man. It's unreal. Probably the only exception is probably Rav Kook, except that the people that write against Rav Kook don't publish on the internet. But the truth the truth is that Rav Kook also that he was also unique in the fact that people mamish scorned him and said he was a Russia. No, he's not the only one. There was also in the times of Yadus and Ebeshitz, so there was such a thing that the people that are real Gadol B'Yisrael, that people put him down. We spoke about Ramchal, that he had issues. People scorned him and thought that he was a Shabtian. But this is unique on the internet nowadays in 2023. That I think the Satmar is the only Gadol that you'll find complete articles on the internet scorning him. Which is no, it comes from a certain nearsightedness not being able to see more than one particular aspect, and an ego connected with an ego of that if he disagrees with me, then he's wrong, and when something that I something like in the I was telling you before that like the purpose of this class is not about Zionism. The purpose of the class is how can we be inspired by the Satmar and how can we be inspired by Rav Kook. But it happens to be that in the question of that yes Zionism, not Zionism. So I was telling somebody the other day that they really I don't know if you heard this, if you heard my message. What? Right. So that really in any real issue, in any real question in the world, so if you aren't able to understand the other side, if you can't really see the legitimacy of both sides, so then your opinion is actually worthless, because an important opinion, a legitimate opinion, is an opinion that is able to see the whole picture, and yet weigh the different issues. That this truth has this much weight, and this truth has this much weight, and by seeing the whole picture with what's called da'as, like the ability to really see to come to a conclusion. So to see which is the more overpowering part of the equation. But if you aren't able to see the other side of the equation, so your opinion is worthless. I mean, that means you just don't get it. That means that you aren't aware of the question. So these people that defame, so obviously it's something that they don't appreciate, that there's another side to the equation. In the case of both Rav Kook and the Satmar, so it's very amazing how they expressed love to those who scorned them, and they were able to see beyond this one tiny disagreement that they have, and in the case of Rav Kook, so not Satmar, because Satmar was in America, but his greatest opponent was Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld. So they were actually very good friends. They actually they got along very well, and they would bless each other whenever they would see each other, and they were very friendly. Their students hate each other. Their students were the ones who were putting up pishkavilim. How do you say pishkavilim in English?
Posters.
Yeah, defamations,
Yeah.
And they were very distraught by the fact that their students were so against each other. So in fact, Rav Kook would like to tell the story about how the students of Rabbi Yaakov Emden, the students of Rabbi Yonatan Abishitz, how there's a longer story, but he would like to say that how that after the entire debate between Rabbi Yaakov Emden and Rabbi Yonatan Abishitz, so Rabbi Yonatan Abishitz and Rabbi Yaakov Emden are sitting together in Gan Eden, and all of the students of Rabbi Yaakov Emden and all the students of Rabbi Yonatan Abishitz, they're all sitting together in Gehenna. And it's better not to get involved in dispute, and because when you're involved in machlekes, so then it's always bad. It's just fire. So pun intended. So let's begin with just go in the order of the yard sites, even though it's not chronological order. Let's speak about the Heilige B'Yolish Teitelbaum Satmar Rav. So once a person once came to the Satmar Rav, and he gave him a check. So Yoel is 47. So I think he gave him like $470, or like maybe even $4,700 as a donation to Satmar. And he told him that Rabbi, I'm giving you this donation for an honor of you. So he looked at it and he said, nope, take it back. You have to write it again, because here in Satmar they call me Yelish. So the Shin adds another 300 to that. So yeah, he was a sharp man. He was a brilliant man. So interestingly, he was pushed away he was from a Rebbe's family. His father was Rebbe. His father was Rebbe in Seagate, and he had an older brother that was expected to be the Rav when his father passed away. And so apparently the Chatzar in Seagate, they sort of like told him that he's expected to leave. And so that's why he was like wandering in Europe, different places in Transylvania, and eventually settled in Satmar. Satmar was like the Yiddish equivalent of Santa Mira, and apparently there's an untrue myth that Santa Mira has something to do with Saint Mary, and apparently it's not true. That it really means like the Great Sea or something, has nothing to do with with Mary. Anyway, so that's what I find in my research of the place. So he came to Satmar, and there he was an amazing masman. He was amazing in Kaddish. He was a very, very holy man. He would only sleep. What?
He was a big Baal Chesed.
That's already in Satmar. It's already in Transylvania. That he started in America. Okay, over there he was more known for his kedusha. He would never sleep in a bed. He would never sleep in a bed except for Friday night and Yom Tov, and because of that, so at the end of his life, so he had very, very swollen feet, and towards the end of his life, so the doctors, because he had such swollen feet, because he never slept in a bed, so just like leaning over, so that's why like it's not good for your feet, what? Yeah. So it sounds like something you would do. So eventually it was actually very bad for his health, and the doctor told him like that towards the end of his life that he's not allowed to dance in Simchas Torah, and so he sat down and he waited for the doctor to leave, and then he danced as if there was no tomorrow. He danced for 6 hours straight, and then and he was above this world. He was above nature. He was mamish. He would never eat. Even he was in the Holocaust. He was taken to Bergen-Belsen, and the things that there's testimonies that he would even be fasting in Bergen-Belsen. That's how holy he was, and so some of his enemies want to say that you see from the fact that he's fasting that apparently his situation wasn't so bad. Apparently he had a good amount of food, or else how could he be able to fast? That's just messed up logic, if you ask me. So he was taken to Bergen-Belsen, and he was interestingly saved by a man named Rudolf Kastner, who was a very he was a Jew, Rudolf Kastner, but he was later tried for collaborating with the Nazis. He was tried. He wasn't convicted when he came to Israel, but he was assassinated. Rudolf Kastner. He was assassinated for being a Nazi collaborator. But towards the end of the war, so he met with Adolf Eichmann, and as a result of that meeting, so they had a certain list of like 200 somewhat families that were able to escape, and so the story goes that Kastner, his mother came to him in a dream the night before his meeting with Eichmann, and told him that you need to put Rabbi Teilbaum on the list, and that's why he was that's how he was saved, and Kastner was connected with the Zionists and with the State of Israel, and so that's his opponents look at him like a hypocrite, because first of all that how could you save your own skin with the Zionists if you told the people you told other people not to go there, and second of all they opposed him for the fact that he abandoned his nation. He abandoned his community. Okay, so regarding abandoning his community, I don't know if we spoke about here or we spoke about somewhere else, that anything else was actually very, very strange. That I don't remember in what context we spoke about this, but there were tzaddikim that didn't want to abandon their community, such as Rav Elchanan, that he's the most extreme among them, that not only did he not abandon his community, he even flew back from safe America to be with his yeshiva in order to be murdered by the Nazis. And that's something that, like, without any judgment, but with clear logic, would dictate that you can do more for the world by trying to save your life than to comfort your dying community. And so I think that the Satmar Rebbe's decision to save himself and to rebuild the Satmar community was an amazingly wise decision, and I think it's simply just anti-Semitic hate to think otherwise. To blame him, to put him down is just really just disgusting. So yeah.
There are also people from his community that gave him things for his journey he needed him to leave.
Okay. I mean, that means that they supported. Yeah. I think anybody in the right mind would support the Rebbe to save himself. Like if my Rebbe had the opportunity to save himself, of course I would tell him that we'll be okay. We want you to be okay. So yeah. So first of all, a very amazing story that happened in the Bergen-Belsen. So before he was saved, he was saved on Chav Aleph Kislev, which is celebrated in Satmar as the Yom HaTzolah, as the day that the Rebbe was saved. And so back in America, so a person came to him and heard that they had been in Bergen-Belsen together, and he came to speak to the Satmar Rebbe. And so this person, he was in Bergen-Belsen, and his story was that his job was to carry out dead bodies to the crematorium. Okay, so on the way to carrying the dead bodies to the crematorium, so one day I skipped. This guy, he was a very religious source of inspiration to the entire concentration camp. And so one day, so he tells his bunkmates that, Rabbi say, that I promise you, we're gonna have Hanukkah licht. We're gonna have Hanukkah candles. We're gonna be able to light Hanukkah candles this year. And so they told him he's crazy, and he said, no, I'm not crazy. I promise you, we're gonna. And he had no idea how he's gonna get this, and he was like nervous because he promised, and like they're looking up to him, and so as his job as bringing the bodies, so one day, so he tripped on something, and then he looked down, and he noticed that there was a little flask of oil.
Oh.
And he thought he's hallucinating, and he picks it up, and then he puts it back, and then the next day he sees that there's more. He sees that there's actually 8 different flasks of oil, and then the next day he finds that that right next to that there's wicks, and somebody had buried these wicks in oil, and he was like waiting there, and so he felt like, I can't take it because somebody put it here. They obviously want to use it, so I can't. Even though I know I promised, I know I have this stress, but like I can't take his. So he's waiting, and meanwhile he didn't get anything, but 2 hours before Hanukkah, so he realizes that, like, okay, I guess the guy is not going to take it if it's still there. So he went and checked, and it was still there. So he took it, and he came back, and he said the bracha, and everybody got a lot of chizuk, everybody got a lot of inspiration and strength from the Hanukkah licht. So this was his story, that he was so amazed, he was so thanking Hashem, so grateful to Hashem that he was able to have Hanukkah candles in Bergen-Belsen. So anyway, unrelated, so he found out that the Satmar Rebbe had been in Bergen-Belsen, so he came to visit him, and the Rebbe says just randomly that there's one thing that I have a lot of guilt about, not guilt, a lot of like anxiety about, that I was released on Chav Aleph Kislev. I was released 21st of Kislev, and that was 4 days before Hanukkah. And so before I was released, I had no idea I was going to be released, and I was able to bribe guards and be able to get. I was preparing for Hanukkah, and I buried all of my Hanukkah stuff in the dirt, and I never told anybody about it, and I never used it, and I feel so horrible that someone could have used the Hanukkah licht, and it went wasted, and like, who would believe? And this man, like, just amazing, just divine intervention that they were able to meet up. Like, who would believe? And he said, Rabbi, I have good news for you. That 200 people were able to use your holy Hanukkah licht that year, 4 days after you were released. Yeah. That's just mind-boggling. So then he came to America. Okay, and in America, so what? You can ask. You can. I don't have to answer.
But that is a big question. I mean, the Satmar, he was like, I read his Sfarm, he's like beyond in Torah, he's like on a different level, a different world in his Kook. But practically speaking, the Zionist...
We didn't say a word about Zionism yet. So far, we're just in Hanukkah. Okay, so after he came to America, so the biggest thing that he had, the biggest challenge that he had was to rebuild Jewry after Judaism had been, and like this is like a common theme in a lot of the tzaddikim that we're learning about the Klausenberg Rebbe and Mike Tress, and we're talking and the Satmar Rebbe. Like, these are all builders. Like the inspiration that we're taking is how to rebuild after a destruction. So interestingly, before he came to America, so he came to Eretz Yisrael. And he was in Eretz Yisrael for a couple of months before he settled in Brooklyn. And before he left Eretz Yisrael, he had a conversation with the Chazon Ish. And in this conversation with the Chazon Ish, so really that in this discussion, they were really planting the seeds for their two different plans of how to rebuild Jewry in the world. And so the Satmar Rav quoted to the Chazon Ish the words of the Rambam. That the Rambam writes that a person needs to know that you are always very influenced by your surroundings. And it's Teva Shel Adam. It's the way that it's in our DNA. It's the way that we are created. It's the way we are programmed. That we are always influenced by our surroundings, and that's why it's so important to find a community that is God-fearing, that is going to support your values. Because if you're in a surroundings that have different values in you, you're going to wake up and suddenly you're not as excited as you used to be, and that's a fact. And says the Rambam, and what do you do if you can't find a good community? What do you do if every community is messed up? So says the Rambam, so then you have to go out to the desert. You're not exempt. Then you have to be a nomad. You have to make your own community. You have to leave society and live a separate life. Okay? So that's what the Satmar Rav told the Chazon Ish, that's our obligation, the way to rebuild right now, that the non-Jewish world has such different values than we do. So the only way the only way to rebuild is to separate ourselves and make a completely detached community. And so to which the Chazon Ish replied that for us, the yeshivot are our desert. The yeshivot are our desert. Meaning, I agree with you, but the yeshivot have that same power, have that same potency as the desert, that if you're living in yeshiva, so then the outside world doesn't exist. Okay? So to which the Satmar Rav answered the Chazon Ish that that's good for the people that can learn in yeshiva. But what about all the people that can't learn in yeshiva? Okay? So as we know that in Israel, so the Chazon Ish was the one paving the way for the Haredi life, and the way that he paved was that the only way to be that everybody needs to learn in Kol. Everybody needs to learn in yeshiva. There is no such thing as living a an integrated life into a secular society, and he insisted that everybody learns in yeshiva, and that had its issues, and the Satmar was against that. He didn't think that everybody was meant to learn in yeshiva their whole life, and that's why when he was rebuilding the community, so first of all, he found a place that they would be able to be completely separate, and he built a community based on this vision of how to fix the problems that pre-war Jewry in Europe had. Okay, and so this is based on three yesaitis, three elements that through which he wanted to fix the problems, to rebuild a new vibrant community. And I want to put on the table that the Satmar was arguably, most probably, the most influential rebbe in post-war Europe. This can simply be seen by the numbers, that the amount of Satmar Hasidim today is, I don't know, what would you say?
Say anything, there's
A lot, like we're talking about like 150,000?
probably
What?
100,000,
100,000? 300,000?
200,000 only in New York.
Mm-hmm. It's huge. It's huge. It's a true joke that when Satmar split into two, so that caused Ger, that Ger used to be the second biggest Hasidus, but when Satmar split into two, so it became the third biggest Hasidus. It's really it's so much greater than any other Hasidus. So, and he was a very, very charismatic man. He was a very, very visionary man, and he knew how to build things. And so a lot of things that he did, even different Hasidus, and they would just follow suit, and they would just see him as the leader. So it's because of him that Hasidus in general is so that you can be just proud to be Hasidish in America. One of his first Shabbosim in Williamsburg, so he was walking down the street in a Streimal in a Bekisha, and somebody told him, Rav, just so you know, that's not nobody dresses like that over here. And Satmar Rav laughed, and he said, just you wait. There's going to be a time that a person's going to be embarrassed not to dress like this over here. What?
And now there is people that walk into Williamsburg and they're like, oh, well,
Yeah,
I
it's.
didn't get to know all the dress codes.
It's like he saw the future. He saw that this is going to be big. He saw that this is going to work. So the way that he built this community is number one. He was not pleased with the fact that of the poverty that existed in America, that existed in Europe, and it was important for him that his Hasidim should have good parnassa, should be wealthy, and they should be able to know how to get good jobs. Interestingly, one of his friends, a different Rebbe, somebody was telling that in the different Hasidus, so they make sure that the boys can get a good education, get a good secular education, because you need because in order to get a good job you need a BA and whatever, and he did not want to send his Hasidim to university, and he thought that you can make a lot of money without going to university, and he said we'll be the Gevirim, we'll be the rich people, and they'll be our accountants. Okay? That to be an accountant you have to go to school. Okay, but so your Hasidim can be our accountants, and we'll be the diamond dealers and the people who are making the big stuff. So okay, number two. So the thing that he thought was necessary was to have autonomy, meaning that the part of the problem that they suffered from the anti-Semitism in Europe is because they were always dependent on the non-Jewish governing country, whatever, and the truth is that it's really ridiculous. You've been to Monroe? You've been to Monroe? What? have you been to Monroe?
I still there.
You live in Monroe, okay. So Monroe is something unlike I don't know if there's ever been such a thing since Bayis Sheni, since like the Second Temple, that such complete religious autonomy that there's that everything is Hasidish, that the police are Hasidish, the hospitals are Hasidish, the doctors are Hasidish, the people bringing the people bringing food to the supermarkets are Hasidish. That there's it's not that they're above the law. Like they have police people, but they're Hasidish police people. What? It's like a what?
I don't want to say this if you have a recording.
Okay, you can tell me after. And they have Hasidic hospitals. They have it's complete autonomy, and it's the and number three, which is connected to number two, is and this is related to his vision of going out to the desert, and that is separatism, and that is that specifically building a community in a way that we're going to be very, very different than American culture, and that's why he insisted on dressing exactly the way they did in Europe, and that's why he insisted on speaking Yiddish. And it's like Satmar Chassidim, some of them can't even speak English, and they speak English. If they speak English, they speak English with an accent. It's like the spoken language is purely Yiddish, they did this purposely in order to separate his Chassidim from the secular society. Okay, and so many of his opponents thought that this was racist. This is condescending, and he said, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is we're normal. Everyone else is crazy, and he was unfaltering. He was very, 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 very proud of his views, and he was very outspoken in his views, and that's why he was that's why people respected him, because he was very he really believed in what he was saying. Now let's speak a tiny bit about his views on the state of Israel, because perhaps that's his most famous opinion is how against he was about the state of Israel, and like we mentioned before, that this didn't actually. Let's put this on the table. That there's something you can call it ironic, but it's really not ironic. It's very amazing that the Satmar Rav and Satmar Chassidim, so they're known to be kanaim. They're known to be very, very zealous. They're very, very strong-willed about that their way is the correct way, and they're willing to even speak against other ideas as being very wrong and being very impure and being very evil. And I think I told you once one of his Hasidim asked him, Rebbe, I came to you Parshas Bereishis, and you said, Rabbi Say, the message of Parshas Bereishis is that the Zionists are horrible. And then I came to Parshas Noach, and you said, Rabbi Say, the message of Parshas Noach is that the Zionists are horrible. And then Parshas Lech Lecha, and you said, Rabbi Say, the message of Parshas Lech Lecha is the Zionists are horrible. I said, Rabbi, every single parsha, it can't be that's the message of every single parsha. So he said, you're right. It's not that it's not that that's the only thing in the Torah. It's just that when you're wearing red glasses, so you see everything in red. And this was he was very outspoken about this, and this was something which was very much on his mind, largely to the fact that he really, really thought that this is the greatest, that it was the greatest atrocity that could possibly be, is the state of Israel. But at the same time, this was that even though they're very outspoken, they're very zealous, and they're very strong about the fact that anybody who's Zionist is evil. But if one of these Zionists comes to you for help, you give him a hug, and you love him as a person, and you do whatever he wants, you do whatever he needs, and the Ahavat Yisrael of the Satmar in particular and the Satmar Hasidus in general is unsurpassed. It's not normal. I heard that the rabbi of Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. So the first year that he became rabbi of Mount Sinai Hospital, so the first Yom Kippur, his greatest tshuva, his greatest regret was that he was doing tshuva on all of the fact that he had spoken against Satmar Hasidim his whole life. That when he was in the hospital, he saw how giving they are and how much they're just helping Jews, non-Jews, secular, religious, that it makes no difference. They just want to help, just for the sake of helping. That there's just the amazing Ahavat Yisrael. And so the bigger cholim and the achnasas orchem, that if you come into Williamsburg, that like they pounce on you to invite you for the Shabbos meal, and they give you to give you a place to stay for free, and they give you food for free, and it's not normal how the entire Chassidus is just full of giving and love, irrelevant to what your personal views are. Okay, but what was his view? His view was that the desire for the desire for a state, for a secular state, was the biggest desecration of Hashem's name possible. And so, like I said before, that that everyone is invited to be Zionist. I myself consider myself Zionist, but it's important to understand that he's very right. That he's very right in his point. Okay, it could be that we can disagree with his conclusion, but if you disagree with his point, then you're off. Okay, and that is the following: that it is a huge chilul Hashem. It's a huge desecration of Hashem's name. That the ones that represent the Jewish people are not representing Torah. Okay, in his time, that there wasn't even a religious party. It was just a bunch of atheists. And don't forget, it wasn't just atheists at the time. That when they created the state of Israel, they were anti-religious. We're talking about people that hated God, hated Torah, and fought fiercely to destroy Judaism from the face of the earth. We're talking about people that they would take orphans from the Holocaust, that from Hasidic families, from Yemenite families, from all different, and they would cut off their payas, and they would feed them pork on Yom Kippur. There's mamish, they would take away the girls' tznius clothes, they were giving not tznius clothing. They would like force them to. They would take away their sitters and take away the mamish horrible anti-religious activism, and this and to think that these people are representing Judaism, that is the greatest atrocity. That's the greatest chilul Hashem. That is it, and that we're talking about. We're here to make a Jewish state, and the purpose of the state of Israel is to be a Jewish state. And I sometimes have to remind my secular friends that you want this to be a Jewish state, right? It's not just like having a democratic state in the Middle East, right? We are here because we're Jewish. The only reason why the UN agreed that we should have a state is in order that we should have a Jewish state, right? So that we need to make sure that the state is Jewish, and for him to say that, to Satmar, that to claim that we have a Jewish state that is not representing Jewish values is the greatest blasphemy. Okay, so that's why he was vehemently against the establishment of the state of Israel. The truth is that he was very thought out. But even if he wouldn't have been thought out, I mean, the mere fact that the greatest enemies to Torah and Judaism are saying anything. If somebody is coming to me and said, "Hi, I have an idea for you. Well, tell me who are you?" I said, "My name is Muhammad. What are you? Or what's your occupation?" "Oh, I'm a terrorist." So whatever he's going to say, I'm going to say that that's the worst thing in the world. I'm going to do the opposite, right? So if these people they are the biggest enemy of Torah and Hashem, so whatever they're going to say, I would say that whatever you're saying is the wrong thing. So, but the truth is he was much more thought out than that, and he explained his views in a very elaborate way in the 2 books he wrote. One is his most famous Ve'al Moshe, and the one is Al Gula Ve'al Tmura, who explains why he feels that that not only is it most probably a bad idea, but it's most definitely a bad idea in his opinion, based on his understanding of the Gemara at the end of Masachet Ketubot. Okay, so that's the idea that I wanted to just share with you about his fierceness against Zionism, and that is that it's a horrible misrepresentation of Judaism to have people that represent the Jewish people that aren't representing Jewish values and the meaning of the Torah.
I think for a lot of people, the founding of the State of Israel was more about a place where Jews could live alive,
Mm-hmm.
than it was that it had to be some sort of theocracy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like a Jewish state doesn't necessarily mean a theocracy. It might just mean a state where you can be Jewish, whether that means like racially, ethnically. Because like the Holocaust wasn't a crime against religious people, it's a crime against people that are ethnically.
Right, so he would say,
racially Jewish. So if you were to like, if you were somebody who survived that period, you might just be okay with there being a place where you could be ethnically, racially Jewish and not care about religion at all. And like, I don't really see how the Satmar Rebbe answers that by like I don't think it's like good enough to say that.
No, let me explain. That he was not against having a safe place for Jews, and there's no doubt that if for the future, for the safety of the Jewish people, that if he would think that you absolutely need to have a Jewish state in Israel, then he would be the first one to say that the first priority is that people should be safe. He happened to think that that's not necessary. And because he thought it's not necessary, so he thought that bringing this Chilul Hashem of creating a Jewish state which is proclaiming the opposite of Judaism is a blasphemy.
And that they were using the science and using the concept of returning home and doing those mitzvahs of like, Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, but like they were using something that is very, very kadosh and kind of using it in their own way and kind of
Yeah, they would say to create a safe place for Jews to
Yeah,
live.
I know.
Like I
No.
don't know.
Definitely
Like,
that,
I think it's pretty extreme.
Yeah.
The Rebbe was very, like he was anti-Hebrew, like modern Hebrew, because he was taking Kaddish words and words all this higher energy and vibration and power and making it into slang. It was another one of his. I don't think he was anti-slave state.
Yeah, no, he wasn't. He thought that he would say that you should all come to Williamsburg
Or Monroe.
or Monroe. Yeah.
Or Tosh. Yeah,
Mhm. Okay, so I just want to end off with one of my favorite stories about the Satmar Rav, and that was the one Purim. The one Purim. So in many congregations, in many communities, they have a custom that you have a Purim Rav. Purim Rav is one of the Hasidim, so he dresses. Well, you know the story. So you have a Purim Rav that dresses up up the Rav, and he imitates the Rav, and it's a big joke, in jest. So you had the Purim Rav, so he was standing up, and he was imitating the way that the Satmar Rav is saying Shema. Satmar Rav had a very, 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 very high-pitched voice, and so he was like doing all of the hand movements and exactly the voice and exactly the screams and exactly it's like everything. He was doing it perfect, and suddenly Satmar Rav started crying, and so he turned white. That's the worst thing. Like the way that they look up to the Rebbe is like amazing. Even though he was really, really. The truth is that he's like I didn't mention that he was unlike other Rebbes that had a certain distance between him and this Hasidim, that he said something when he first came to America, that here in America, I need to be a father before I'm a Rebbe. Then like he would just talk to people about just what's going on with their everyday lives, and just how can I help you? How can I build you? How can I be at service of you in any way? So anyway, but the worst thing is to cause the Rebbe to cry is the most horrible thing that you could imagine. And so he ran over, he stopped everything, he ran over to the other side of the Beis and he said, "Please, Rebbe, please forgive me. I had no intentions." He said, No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Continue." and so he says, "Are you sure? I don't want to cause you pain." He said, No, you're doing amazing. I love it. Well, continue. So he starts doing it again. And again, the Rebbe starts crying. So again, the Rebbe, again he turns away and he runs over, and he says, "Rebbe, please forgive me, please. I didn't mean to cause you pain." So he said, No, it's really fine. And he said, "Please continue." He said, "No, I can't continue. Like I can't cause me such anguish that I'm causing the Rebbe pain." And so he said, "Let me explain. That when you were saying Shema Lekma, when you were imitating me, so you did it so perfectly, you did it so amazingly, that it was mamish like me. And then I had this thought that, whoa, if he was able to just imitate me, even though he's not me, so who knows, maybe every day I'm just imitating myself. Maybe I'm not really living a real life. Maybe I'm just living a life of being a Purim Rav." And that made me cry, that I have to make sure that who knows if I'm actually living an authentic life, or if I'm. Mm-hmm. So this is, and I think this story really personifies who he was. That his entire life he was so insistent on being real and being authentic, and I don't care, the entire world can jump in a lake, and I'm going to be strong with my truth, and people respected that, and people were attracted to that, and he was able to, Mamish able to rebuild an amazing kehillah, and I was telling Rebecca that because of the separatism, so a lot of times we only get to hear about Satmar from the ex-Satmars, and then you're hearing like a very very.
There's actually a new YouTube person that she's interviewing. Her name is Carol, and she's a woman in Williamsburg, and she's very open and out to some channel.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to hear someone from the community.
From inside. Okay. So there's a lot of negative PR because of what's it called, unorthodox.
Unorthodox, but also when the Rebbe split, when the Hasidim split, there was mamish a cold war, violence, lots of, it was big scenes in a lot of the generation that grew up then were like, "I'm out of here, like you guys are clones." And so that's a lot of feedback that you hear from ex-Hasidim, their experience.
Yeah. So there's a lot of beauty. Like on the inside, there's a lot of beauty. Just that we're not so privy to because it's not on the internet for obvious reasons. So so check out whose blog.
I'll post it on the chat.
Okay, so post it on the chat. Okay, so now we come on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to Zionism, but not on the opposite side of the track for anything else. We come to the Yahrzeit boy of next Sunday, and that is Rav Avram Yitzchak Kohen Kook. So he passed away much earlier. He passed away in 1935. He's buried in Har Zeisim. Actually, there's a miracle regarding his grave, that between 1948 and 1967, so we know that the Jordanians had control over the Kotel and the Old City. So there was horrible desecration in the cemetery in Har Zeisim, that they would just take. They built a hotel on Har Zeisim, and they paved the road on the Har Zeisim, and they would just take gravestones and use it for building. Horrible, disgusting lack of sensitivity, and so the and miraculously the tzion of Rav Kook was left untouched. There's a whole story about the what's it called, the story when we spoke about the Or HaChaim. We spoke of the miracles of the Or HaChaim that the two Jordanians got killed trying to plow through the Or HaChaim's tzion. So they didn't know about that the Or HaChaim was a holy man, but there's no story about just nobody. They didn't try. They just left Rav Kook's tzion alone. And when they asked afterwards, like the person in charge, they asked like how did it stay? So they said no. We knew. Everybody knew that Rav Kook was such a holy man. We didn't want to mess with Rav Kook. Okay, so that's like the Jordanians, yeah. So, so I want to speak a little bit about Rav Kook. He was a very, very regal man. He was a very, very regal man. He was very, like you see in pictures, that he has something about the Satmar, you saw in him a holiness. You saw in him a certain warmth. The Rav Kook, you saw a certain seriousness. You can see in his eyes, he was like a little bit like, I think he was more scary than I didn't obviously never met either of them, but I think he was more scary to meet than Satmar. He was something very, very, very I don't know, out of this world, and so he came to Eretz Yisrael. At first, he was appointed to be the Rav of Yafo, and so when he was living in Yafo, so sometimes he would go to at the end of the summer he would go to a vacation. So he would go to Rehovot. So in Rehovot, so he was staying by the Lefkowitz family, and so the Lefkowitz family saw that he wasn't really getting a vacation. So because everyone was bothering him and everyone was speaking to him and it was taken for advice. So he, this Mr. Lefkowitz, so he had a vineyard, and so he took him to the vineyard. And so in the vineyard, there's a certain hut where he had. So he said, "Here, you can stay here. You can here. Nobody will bother you because nobody will know you are." So he had thought that Rav Kook was going there to rest, but he only came out later that what did he do with his 2 hours of free time? So he was writing a sefer. He was writing a sefer on these obscure comments of the Vilna Gaon. So he called it Be'er Eliyahu, and one of his greatest works was just how to interpret what the Vilna Gaon was trying to say in his very, very terse, enigmatic comments. And so that's what he would do when in his free time, in his resting time, 2 hours a day. So he was writing a sefer. He was known as one of the biggest Iluyim, one of the biggest geniuses in the Volozhin yeshiva. He was a student of the Nitziv of Volozhin, whose yahrzeit was actually this Tuesday. It was actually yesterday. The learning that he had, he wouldn't sleep. He was learning 60 daf a day, and when he was in Volozhin yeshiva, which is crazy. He's we're talking about geniuses which are way beyond our comprehension, and so he was, and he really in all elements of life he was just superhuman. When he first came to Yafo, so his wife came to the city council, and she said, what's going on? I haven't gotten my husband's salary for 3 months already. So they said, I don't know what you're talking about. We've been paying every month. So they investigated, and apparently, so as soon as the Rav Kook would get his salary, so he would immediately give it out to poor people, and he said, and they said, but how could you? Why are they more important than your wife? He said, no, they're not more important than my wife, but my wife, she can just tell the grocery that I'm Rav Kook's wife, so they'll give you on credit. But these poor people, who's going to give them on credit? So A similar story is that once there was the guy that was trying to get a mortgage, and they required a bunch of guarantors to sign in and so Rav Kook was one of the guarantors, and so they disqualified him. Disqualified a bunch of the people, but one of the people they disqualified was Kook. He said, "How dare you? He's the Rav. Like, how can you disqualify?" And so they explained to him that I want you to understand, Rav Kook. So he has a heart of gold, and he's always helping, and he wants to, so the poor people, they cling to him because they know that he's always willing to help, and he's willing to give like the sandwich from his mouth to give to them, to help them. And so, and the only reason why there are some poor people that don't go to him is only because some of the poor people know that he doesn't have money. most of the poor people don't know that he doesn't have money, so they go and they ask him for money, and he gives the money that he doesn't have. But some people know that he doesn't have money, so that's the only reason. But if they would find out that they can get money just from signing, so then of course he's going to sign it for everybody. So because he's such a good-willed, good-hearted person, so we can't do this. And moreover, so that if he would be a guarantor, then it would make a difficult situation for the bank that either he's going to lose, and which we would never want him to lose, or the bank is going to lose. So better that we should just not take Rav Kook as a guarantor. So on the Rav Kook was very, very eloquent. He's always very very eloquent speaker, and very outspoken in his standing up for his views. A story that happened in Europe, that he was going to some vacation village, and there was a Rav there named Rav Bengus that he became the Rav of Yerushalayim as to replace Rav Bengus actually. And so Rav Bengus, once they were davening mincha together, and Rav Bengus had yortzeit, so he was making a minyan, but there was only 9 people, and so one of the people went outside to try to find a 10th person, and so this person didn't realize that there was a prominent person of the community outside who was also had yortzeit, who was making a minyan outside, and so he pulled some person in, and he didn't realize that there was only 10 people outside. And so he was actually, by taking this person in, so he was actually taking away from the minyan of the other guy. And this other guy was a very well-to-do, well-connected, very rich, and very powerful person. And so this rich, powerful person, so he storms in, and he starts cursing out Rav Bengus, and starts insulting him, and said, "How dare you," and whatever. And so Rav Kook, who is his friend, walks over to him and slaps him across the face. And everyone is like shocked. Like how could you slap this prominent person? Like they're gonna he could put you in jail. So he says, in front of me, nobody's going to be mevaz the Torah. Nobody's going to insult the Torah. I don't give anybody breaks. If you're going to insult the Torah, so then you're going to pay for it. Okay, and so that story, there's interesting continuation to this story, that much later, when Rav Kook was already the Rav of Yerushalayim, the Rav of Israel, so when he was fundraising in America, and in America, so a guy comes over to him, and he says that the Rabbi, I'm the one that you slapped in that vacation village, and I want you to know that it was that I forgot that at first the people were trying to tell him to apologize, because they were scared that he was going to sue him, and bring him to, and he was going to go to jail. And he said, "No, I refused to apologize. He was mevaz the Torah. He deserved what he got." And so Baruch Hashem, he never sued, whatever. But years later, so this guy came over to him, and he says, "Rabbi, I want you to know that I'm the one that you slapped in this village, and I want you to know that it was such a bracha to me, because of that story. So I was humiliated by everybody was looking at me as the person that Rav Kook slapped me, and everybody took your side and not my side." And so I was so humiliated that I had to leave to America. And now I came to America, and now I'm Hashem, I did very well. So it's all because of you. So it's all because of you. And so therefore I want to thank you, and I have this gold watch. I want to give you this fancy gold watch as a token of my appreciation. And I hope that you, yeah. So this is because you gave me that stuff, I want to give you this gold watch. And so Rav Kook was very, he didn't want to take it. He didn't want to take it, but he wouldn't take no for an answer, and they forced him to take it. But his entire life he was saying, like, I feel very not at ease that I have this watch that I came to me because of insulting the Torah. So it was like, and he said something in his will about like the gold watch that I feel uncomfortable about it. So like do something with it. And anyway, so he certainly never used it. So okay, so the same is true. He was very, very outspoken and very, very, very takif. He was very like it's not like nobody should think that like the Satmar was zealous and Rav Kook was soft. Rav Kook was just as zealous as Satmar, just the opposite. So a couple of stories about that. That number one, that there was a whole that there was riots. There's riots going on in around 1930 regarding the Kota. That the Arabs wanted control over the Kota, and there was even a horrible story that there was a riot that became and everyone Baruch Hashem, the people at that time the people got away, that they raided the Kota and chased everybody away, and then they burned 7 Sefer Torah, like that in the middle of davening. They raided the Kota and around that time there were a bunch of riots. It was around the same time as the Havron massacre, and around like 600 people were massacred were killed around that time, and so there was a whole to do, and they wanted to send from the UN something called there was something about the League of Nations or something, and so they were going to decide about who owns the Kota, and so Rav Kook came to speak before this League of Nations, and he said very, very passionately that, who do you think you are, you League of Nations? You think the Kota is yours? You're going to decide? You're going to decide who owns the Kota? You want to know? You know who owns the Kota? God owns the Kota. And God said that it belongs to the Jews, and it's belonged to the Jews since we built it. Since this is our nation, and especially the Kota belongs to us. And the people that were there, they were like, everybody before that, it was like very meek and very like, please, and like he's the first one that's like talking, like putting them in their place, and like there was like, it made a very, very big impression. But they argued with him, and they said, but Rabbi, the Jews haven't had control of the Kota for 2,000 years. So he answered them, I want to explain to you a little piece of Jewish law. That is that there's just such a thing as when you have a lost object. So when you give up, it's called yush. So if you have yush, so then you can lose your ownership of a certain piece of property. But according to Jewish law, if the one who is stolen from, if he's constantly screaming, you stole from me, so then he never loses his ownership. And we have been proclaiming that our land was stolen from us this entire 2,000 years, and so it never left our possession. Anyway, so then the Israeli, the Vad HaLeumi, so they came up with a compromise that there should be, in order to make peace with the Arabs, so we should make a compromise that we respect the fact that it belongs to the Arabs, in exchange that they respect that we have the rights to come to the Kota, meaning that they're not going to kick us out. Meanwhile, it didn't even say in the agreement that we have the right to daven at the Kota. And like as we know about now with the Har Bayit, that it's not the same thing, that sometimes they could be against. And it turns out at the end of the story that they refused b'shum ofen to give us the right to daven at the Kota, and that's why the whole compromise. But anyway, they were trying to convince Rav Kook to agree to this compromise, and he vehemently disagreed. How dare we, as the Jewish people, how dare we admit that the Kotel belongs to the Arabs? And he said that if we would be willing to admit that the Kotel belongs to the Arabs, who knows if Hashem will ever want to give it back to us. That the very basic thing that we have to at least be proud of the fact that it's ours. If we're going to say, yeah, we agree that it's not ours, so then Hashem says, how dare you say it's not yours? I gave it to you. And so Rav Kook was concerned that they would go to Rav Sonnenfeld, and the Rav Sonnenfeld would be pro this compromise. So he sent a messenger to Rav Sonnenfeld to try to tell him. And meanwhile, Rav Sonnenfeld was also very, very against this compromise for the very same reason, that how dare we say a lie, that it belongs to them. And he was sending a messenger to Rav Kook to convince Rav Kook that he shouldn't agree to this compromise. So then the messengers met in the middle, and they were all, and and everything was good. And last but not least, regarding the Hebron massacre, so Rav Kook, there was a British executive by the name of Harry Charles Luke. He was actually, you've heard of him? No? And so he was actually a,
Sounds very British.
yeah, and he was actually from Jewish assimilated parents, but his father converted to Christianity, and after the started riots, so Rav Kook called up this Mr. Luke, and he said to him that you have to do something. You have to protect the Jews. They're rioting. We're in danger. You have to do something. And so he said, what should I do? So he said, shoot the murderers. So he said, I'm sorry, I didn't get any order to shoot anybody. So Rav Kook says to him, I'm ordering you, in the name of humanity, in the name of the morals of mankind, I order you to shoot the murderers, to make it a safe place. And of course he ignored it, and because he ignored it, so soon after was the Hebron massacre, and he held Mr. Luke to be responsible for this, and a couple of days later, so there was like a conference where Mr. Luke as the general's something assistant was there, and Rav Kook as the chief rabbi was there, and Mr. Luke stuck out his hand to shake Rav Kook's hand. It was like just as a what's it called? As a thing of it was politeness. It was just a courtesy, and Rav Kook refused to. He was in a quiet, very in a stir of emotions. He said, "I'm not going to shake hands of people who have Jewish blood on their hands," and so on their hands, yeah. So he was very very strong-minded, very strong-willed, and very outspoken about his views. One of the things that he was very into is to be proud Jews. Like this is really his way of expressing his being proud Jews. Now the controversies regarding Rav Kook are number one the state of Israel, that he disagreed with the Satmar, and the basis of his disagreement was that he was able to see beyond what somebody was saying, meaning that he saw, and this is connected to the second thing, the second controversial thing, and that he was mekarev very secular people, not for the sake of trying to make them more religious, but he was just nice to them because he saw value in what he called the Tchiyat HaUmah, that the rise of nationalism. That he saw something very beautiful, that for the first time, that after 2,000 years of being asleep, that people want to be a proud nation, and they want to have a land, and they want to speak the language that hasn't been spoken for 2,000 years. He saw in that a very beautiful thing, and a very messianic thing. that from being an exiled nation and a lowly nation, that to be able to come together as powerful people. So he saw this a very holy thing, a very messianic thing, and he said that just simply first you need to build the body, and then you can build the soul. So meaning that he's vehemently against the concept of secular Zionism, that to do away with Torah, but yet he saw in the concept and the construct of Zionism something which is a good body to hold the soul of bringing the Hashem's will into the world in a way that unlike we've ever seen before. So that was those were his two controversial things. That he would meet with Eliezer ben Yehuda, who's the author of the dictionary, and different people. But on the other hand, he was also very into Kiruv, and he convinced Rav Sonnenfeld to make trips all over the different kibbutzim. He would go to the secular kibbutzim, and just spend time with them and tell them Divrei Torah and show them that I didn't forget about you guys. I'm your rabbi. I don't care if you think I'm your rabbi, but I'm going to spend Shabbos with you just because you're my people. And so okay, what are you going to do? The rabbi is coming. What the heck? And it's amazing how many people he inspired to, just by seeing him. I tell you, amazing. He was such an amazing, just something about him that everyone just was awestruck, was starstruck by Rav Kook. There's this interesting story that one of the heads of the Zionist movement, his daughter was very sick, and he found out that the only person that can treat him is this person, this very, very busy professor who lives somewhere in Europe, but it's not going to help because he's so busy that he's not going to pay attention to just some random guy. But he heard that the only way that you can get in is that it happens to be that this person idolizes Rav Kook. So if you can get a special letter of a recommendation from Rav Kook, then he'll put your daughter in first priority. But he was embarrassed because he was the person that had always been speaking openly against Rav Kook and putting him down I'm mixing up, not Zionists. There's someone of the Kanaim, one of the anti-Zionists, right? One of the people that thought he was a Russia. So mixed up between the beginning of the class and the end of the class. So one of these Kanaim. So he came to Rav Kook, but he was embarrassed because he was the one that was putting out these cursing out Rav Kook in public, and so he went to Rav Aryeh Levin. Rav Aryeh Levin was one of Rav Kook's. By the way, I want to make another comment about Rav Kook in general, that people make the mistake to think that Rav Kook was not ultra-Orthodox. That Rav Kook had anything to do with the Dati Leumi, with the modern Orthodox, the movement community, and that's a blatant mistake. Rav Kook was completely Haredi. All of his students were Haredi. Rav Aryeh Levin, Rav Moshe Charlap, they were completely Haredi. There was no such thing as a Dati Leumi world until much later. The Dati Leumi world was created with his son Rav Tzvi Yehuda Kook, together with Rav Moshe Tzvi Neria, that they created the Kippot Zugot that we have today. But that didn't exist in the time of Rav Kook. So you can think whatever you want about the Dati Leumi world. It has nothing to do with Rav Kook. Rav Kook, there is no one in the world that didn't look at Rav Kook as Kadosh Kadoshim. His biggest, like I said at the beginning, his biggest adversaries were thought that he was a Malach Hashem, that he was just simply an angel. Okay, so he said Rav Aryeh Levin. So he asked this person. He told him that one of these people that hates you, but he curses you out. But his daughter is very sick, and he needs a letter to this doctor, to this professor that you. And he said, of course, and he writes the letter, and meanwhile, outside is so he takes the letter and is going outside. And Rav Levin sees the outside of Kook's house is two of Kook's students that were anti his haters. Okay, and so And so then a couple of seconds later, he's sending for Levine to come back. So he's scared that they had convinced him that it was a mistake, that he shouldn't write the letter. But he's like, he can't. The Rav called him. He can't not go back. So she said, I realized that he's going to also need transportation, and here's a number of a person that knows me, and if he says that he knows me, they'll be able to get a better rate on the transportation. so this is like mamish, like that. This is another example of how much of a malach he was. That people just like spit in his face, and that he was really out there to help him. So, okay, it's already very late, but Baruch Hashem that we have tzaddikim, Baruch Hashem that we have machlekes, Baruch Hashem that we have different ways of that. Life is not simple, life is not black and white, and the ikar is to be a tzaddik, the ikar is to be holy, the ikar is to love every Jew, which we see in both of these very outspoken and very passionate and zealous tzaddikim. So that what we see in both of them is that it doesn't matter what your political views are, just be very, very holy and love every Jew. So, l'chaim.